I'm Bill Sims. Thanks for spending a little time with me today to talk about behavior change and positive reinforcement. You know, as leaders, we all want the same thing from our employees. We want more safety, more quality, more customer service, more productivity, more innovation. We want more from people, and we want to improve retention. If you want more from people, you got to figure out how you're going to change their behavior. And our approach is based on behavioral science, over 100 years of research in the field, and over 30 years of my work developing behavior modification systems through positive reinforcement. Now, it really is all about behavior change. And our approach is a patented approach that helps you measure the behavior that you want to change and then document the behavior has changed and then link that to improved results. And we'll explain a little bit more about that as we go. I've been honored in the past 30 years to build, as I mentioned, more than 1,000 behavior modification systems for some of the companies that you see on the slide here. DuPont, the world's largest safety consulting firm. We've been honored to work with their clients and some of their own plants to help them improve positive reinforcement. Orkin, they kill bugs for a living. And UAW Ford, it's been a great honor to be on a number of culture change workshops with their leadership team. We're delighted to be associated with them. Now, when people first hear the title of my book is Green Beans and Ice Cream, the immediate response is, green beans and ice cream, Bill, that doesn't go together at all. But I promise you, after you've read the book, it'll become your favorite recipe for dealing with your coworkers, your employees, your kids, and yes, even your spouse. And we'll talk a little bit about what green beans and ice cream is all about. If you haven't got a copy, be sure you head out to greenbeanbook.com and you can get a copy there. Or if you're into audiobooks, you can get one at audible.com. Now, I'm just a guy from South Carolina, nothing special, but I do get around a little bit, and we like to do keynote presentations. So if you have an association that you're a member of or aware of, and they might be interested in a keynote speaker, please shoot us an email, let us know who to reach out to. We'll be happy to send them a copy of the book as my gift and a little bit more on our keynote presentation, Green Beans and Ice Cream. There are 3 rocks we're going to take a look at today that we're going to kind of pick up and look under. The first one is, what is positive reinforcement and why do you care, right? And that's really what the book is dedicated to. And the second major rock we're going to talk about today is, how do you deliver positive reinforcement and how do you not? So that's really the focus of my half-day Green Bean Leadership Workshop, and we'll share a few more details about that as we go. And then the final, third rock we're going to talk about is, what are the tools that you need to equip your team with to be able to track and measure positive reinforcement, to know where it's happening, and most importantly, know where it's not happening. Because after all, folks, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, can you? So that's a key takeaway. And that's the Smart Card system. It's a patented software tool. We just got our patent from the U.S. Patent Office. Thrilled to receive that. And we'll get into a few details about that as we go. Well, one morning, the president of BP landed his helicopter on the helideck that you see on the oil rig in the picture. And he got out and he said, "You boys are the safest rig we've got. Y'all been 7 years without a lost time injury. Here's your $50 gift card. Here's your barbecue dinner, and here's your t-shirt." And that night, tragically, 11 men would die. A $108 billion nightmare would begin to unfold for BP, Transocean, and Halliburton. CNN reported more than 400 maintenance items were not corrected on that rig. A couple of those items would have probably given a little extra time for those gentlemen to get off the rig before they were killed. The question we really have to ask, and we're not generalizing about BP. I've got many friends at BP. BP is very passionate about safety. But we're just talking about that one rig, the Horizon rig. In the 7 years running up to this disaster, did they really have the presence of safety on that rig? Or did they rely on a little bit of injury hiding, that old bloody finger going in the pocket, right? And perhaps the absence of accidents. So what do you think they had? Presence of safety or the absence of accidents? The answer is clear. They had the absence of accidents. So How do you know you have the presence of safety at your company and you're not relying on the absence of accidents? Very interesting question to ponder. Another high-profile case started back in 2006 when OSHA paid a visit to SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida. They said, look, Tilikum the whale has killed 2 people. He will kill again. Get him out of the show. Put a $3 million handrail around that pool so the trainer can pull herself out if she's dragged in. And at this point, senior leadership at SeaWorld said, no, we're not taking the whale out of the show. He's our star performer, and we're not spending $3 million to put a handrail around the pool. That's crazy, OSHA. Now they had the perfect design for a fatality, and they got one. Just 4 years later, they killed Dawn Broncho, graduate of my hometown University of South Carolina. They killed her, folks. They rehearsed for that fatality 1,000 times till they got it right and killed her. Now, here's a question for you. Is it possible right now in your business you have some folks rehearsing for the next injury? Sure you do. People take shortcuts, don't follow procedures. They are rehearsing for that next injury, right? And so our goal as business leaders is once again to change people's behavior. We want to stop the rehearsal for the next injury, right? Business is behavior. To change your results, you have got to change people's behavior. By the way, SeaWorld paid their little $12,000 slap on the wrist fine, and they put the whale back in the show. He's performing there today. Now, if we look at the Heinrich Pyramid, this is from the father of safety, 1931, Mr. Heinrich. I added something at the bottom of his pyramid, management at-risk behaviors. So that was an addition I made, and I really made it after watching what went down with SeaWorld. Because if we think about how SeaWorld managed safety, we start at the bottom, at those management at-risk behaviors. When management refused to get the whale out of the show and put the $3 million handrail in, that's what you call a management at-risk behavior. And then Dawn, she got in the pool with the whale. That was her last and final worker at-risk behavior, right? So that was followed up by 150 or more events, near miss, near hits, recordable injuries, lost time injuries. All of those things were ignored. But finally, at the top of the pyramid, when they had the fatality, you can't ignore that, can you? Now the whale comes out of the show. The $3 million handrail gets put around the pool. SeaWorld manages safety at the top of their risk pyramid. Where do you want to manage safety? At the top or the bottom? You want to be at the bottom. You want to be beneath that pyramid where you can be proactive, right? That's the place you have to be to stop the rehearsal for the next injury. But are you truly at the bottom? Most companies aren't. In fact, 99% of the companies I talk to, they all want to be at the bottom, but they say, you know, Bill, we're stuck somewhere in the middle. We're not proactive, we're reactive. We have a first aid case. We work really, really hard to keep it from becoming a recordable. We have a recordable. We work really, really hard to keep it from becoming a lost time. You know, we got them on light duty, guarding boxes, counting paper clips. A lot of lost productivity there, but as long as it's not a lost time, we're okay. Hey, that's not the approach, right? So we're in the middle of the pyramid. We're not really at the bottom. So one of the things our smart card system does is it offers you a tool to measure behavior at the bottom of your pyramid, and that's critical path to improving safety. Now, I want to talk a little bit about worker behaviors. When a worker does something unsafe or at risk, as the slide indicates, the worker usually gets hurt or killed. When management does something unsafe or at risk, now, again, the workers get hurt or killed, but many, many workers are hurt or killed at one time. In the BP case, those 11 workers on that rig did absolutely nothing to cause the fatalities that occurred, right? They did everything the best they knew how. The problem on that rig were decisions by the BP management team who violated their own process safety management standards that were in their books and ran that rig in a way that it was unsafe. So when management does something that is at risk, we hurt or kill many, many more people. Another high-profile case right now in the news is General Motors is having significant difficulty with over 200 deaths linked to a faulty switch. To have gotten a better switch, ignition switch, would have cost 57 cents more per vehicle. And it was a management decision some years ago, long before Mary Barra took over, where they said we're going after cost and we'll put safety second. So management at-risk behaviors, in that case, hurt or killed over 200 people. So you want to manage safety at the bottom of the pyramid. Reality says you're probably somewhere in the middle if you're like most folks. And now I want to talk about injury hiding. You know, OSHA paid a visit to Excel Logistics. They had 6,000 employees. They were paying them $100 a month if they didn't report a recordable injury, right? What do you think started happening? That bloody finger goes in that pocket and they just go home a little bit early, right? People were hiding stuff. We all know how that works. And so OSHA came in using the whistleblower memo and shut down their incentive system and made them go with a leading indicator system as opposed to a lagging indicator system because people are hiding injuries. And yes, poorly designed lagging indicator incentive systems do cause injury hiding, right? There's another reason people hide injuries. I'm afraid I'll lose my job. I might get fired. I'll get disciplined. And if people start hiding injuries for any of those reasons in your system, watch what happens to your pyramid. The whole bottom disappears. Now let me ask you a question. Can you really manage the bottom of an invisible pyramid? No. What got you here won't get you there. 0 injuries is not your goal. No. The real goal, folks, is a goal far beyond 0 injuries. The real goal is 0 at-risk behaviors from the leadership team and the workers in an interdependent Bradley curve culture. That's right. I am asking you to pursue perfection. Do I think you're ever going to get it? No. But if you pursue perfection, as Coach Lombardi said, you will achieve excellence. You will achieve 0 injuries. So there's a level of safety beyond 0 injuries that few companies really see. It's 0 at-risk behaviors. And you got to strive for that as a target to be able to achieve 0 injuries, right? So 0 injuries is the beginning of your journey. It is not the end. So how do you create a culture that performs beyond 0, right, at its very best? Well, there really are only 4 kinds of workers that come to work for you. You have the incompetent worker. Hey, I can't do the job because you just hired me. You got to get me trained to give me the tools. So pretty quickly you get them competent, you get them trained up, and now they become either, hey, I will not do your safety, quality, customer service, CSA stuff. I am non-compliant. Or they might become compliant. I'll do it if I have to because you're standing there watching me with your clipboard or your checklist or that little camera in the dash of the truck, right? And then you got the kind we can't seem to hire enough of. I want to do it. I'm committed to quality, safety, customer service. It's who I am. In fact, in the moment of choice, when you're not there to watch me, I'll give you voluntary extra effort. I'll report a safety hazard. I'll come up with an idea, improve quality or cut cost. I'll give you voluntary extra effort. I'll even look at a coworker and say, hey man, you could get hurt doing it that way. How about do it like this? Where do you want your culture? The answer is obvious. You want people at commitment. And according to Gallup, about 5% of your workforce is there. Good job. But the bad news is 95% of your workforce is not at commitment. They live at either compliance or non-compliance. Why is that? Because the management system your supervisors use is the only one they've ever been taught. It's the same one used around the world by every manager on the planet. It is called leave alone, zap. We leave people alone and say nothing when they do the job right. We zap them when they make a mistake. Put your safety glasses on now. You hear me? There's the zap, right? Now, does leave alone zap change behavior? What do you think? Yeah, it does. That's why we like to use it so much, right? We've all done it. I've done it too. Leave alone zap produces a short-term shift in behavior, a yo-yo effect of behavior change. Let's watch it happening, right? So a pack of cars is driving down the interstate, and believe it or not, they're breaking the speed limit. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're 10 miles an hour faster than they should be. They are non-compliant. And they will keep doing that, folks, as long as we leave them alone. But the minute they see that police officer with the radar gun pointed at them, to avoid the zap, they become compliant. Hit the brakes, right? So behavior change did occur. They slowed down. They went from non-compliance to compliance. But how long does that change in behavior last? 60 seconds past the police officer, they're like, whew, he didn't get me. And now what do they become? Right back down to non-compliance. This is that yo-yo effect of leave alone zap management in action. Hey, I'm not doing it. Oh, there's the cop. I'm doing it. I'm compliant. Oh, he's gone. I'm not doing it. Hey, I'm not wearing my safety glasses and my PPE. Oh, wait, here comes the safety cop. Safety cop coming. Yep, got him on. Ever seen this happen? Sure you have. We've all seen it happen. When the teacher came back in the classroom, the kids straightened up, right? When she left, they were crazy, right? So this little temporary shift back and forth, if you've ever seen this happen in your company, you now know you have leave alone zap in your management system. And the point I'd like to make about leave alone zap is the most you ever get from leave alone zap is that one line. You get that right-hand line, that's as far as it goes. You don't get commitment. You can't leave alone zap your workforce into commitment. If leave alone zap produced commitment, the police would have eradicated speeding years ago because they're the best in the business at leave alone zap, right? They're experts, got it down to a science. The death penalty would have eradicated murder many years ago because there's no bigger zap than the electric chair, right? If you want the highest level of performance, if you want commitment, you need a different system than leave alone zap management. You need PR plus leadership, positive reinforcement leadership and coaching. This is the only way to get people to give you voluntary effort in the moment of choice when you're not there to watch, right? And it's this transformation of your leadership team from leave alone zap to PR plus leadership. This is what our company does. We facilitate you in making that shift. Now, Harvard Business Review has gotten into the positive reinforcement game. They say positive reinforcement drives profit, period. How could that be? Well, positive reinforcement increases commitment in your employees, and committed employees are going to deliver better safety, quality, customer service, and productivity. And now you're going to have happier customers, higher client retention, and that's going to drive better profitability, right? So why does your C-level leadership team care about positive reinforcement? Because they care about profits, right? Now, I want to talk a little bit about 1964. In 1964, the prevailing view in management theory was the way you run companies is command and control. My way or the highway. I'm the boss, you're the employee, you do as you're told, and don't bother telling me how to do the job better because I'm smarter than you. This is how we thought companies ran in 1964. In fact, most companies did run that way based on their experience in the military. A lot of World War II veterans had come out. Now they were entering the workforce as managers. So in 1964, Robert Greenleaf began doing research studying various military teams in the U.S. Military as well as business teams. And what he found was the teams that were run command and control, leader first at the top, these teams actually had lower performance than the other teams. The teams with the highest performance were run much more like George Washington ran his organization at Valley Forge, right? The leader became the servant at the bottom of the pyramid, placing the employee or soldier at the top. And the leader focused on clearing barriers or obstacles away to help those employees do their jobs better. And he found this moved performance off the chart. So quickly we began to see that command and control leadership was out, and servant leadership was the way to derive great performance. Now, I want to tell you a great story. I was privileged after about 2 years of work to get 1 hour with Steve Provost, the CEO of Maggiano's Little Italy restaurant. Great restaurants. If you ever get a chance to go, be sure you do. Steve's got about 8,000 employees scattered all over the USA. And so when Steve and I go into his restaurant, what do you think Steve does? Well, sure, he greets all the employees and says, "Hi, I'm the CEO of Maggiano's." But his first action is he busses the tables with the busboy. He washes dishes in the kitchen. Is that an act of servant leadership? You better believe it. Is that positively reinforcing to his team? Uh-huh. Is that the leader demonstrating voluntary extra effort he does not have to give? Yes. When the leader does something voluntary extra he didn't have to do, what do the followers do? The same thing. And that's one of the reasons why Maggiano's is such a success today. By now, you're probably thinking, hey, we could use a little more positive reinforcement in our culture and a little less leave alone zap. So now we'd like to do a quick assessment of your company's culture. I have two companies, Company A and Company B. Which one sounds most like your company? Bill, here at Company A, when it comes to positive reinforcement, I'd have to say we're kind of like magic. I mean, we do it, but we're inconsistent in our use of it. We still have some leave alone zap in our system, quite a lot of it, in fact. Some of our leaders are pretty good at positive reinforcement, others not so much, and we don't have a way to measure it. So we're pretty much like magic. We're Company A. Or are you more like Company B? Bill, here at Company B, we're strategic in our use of positive reinforcement. We have a consistent definition that starts at the top and goes down through every level of our leadership team. And we deliver positive reinforcement and feedback every day for the critical world-class safety, quality, production, customer service behaviors that we're looking for. Here's the report to prove we've done it because we have a system to track it. Okay, so which company do you work for? Are you closer to Company A, Magic, or Company B, Strategic? Well, most folks say, Bill, we're probably a little closer to Company A, right? And wherever you are on the continuum, where you want to be is Company B. Everybody wants to go from A to B. And that transformation from Magic to Strategic begins with our half-day Green Bean Leadership Executive Workshop. Now, this is a 4-hour course. We like to get the top 10 or 20 leaders together for this session. The feedback we've gotten on it, my evaluation scores are 5 out of 5. Most folks say it's the best training they've ever attended their entire lives. And so, what do we talk about in the Green Bean Leadership Workshop when we have your top leaders together? One of the first things we talk about is what really is positive reinforcement and what is it not? And what we find is that quite often the leadership teams do not fully agree on the definition of positive reinforcement. So I have a little question that I'd like to ask, and we'll show you kind of how we do this in the workshop. How many people believe a paycheck is not positive reinforcement for your worker? That's the first question I'm going to ask all the leaders in the room. And I'm going to count the hands. How many of y'all think a paycheck is not positive reinforcement? Just raise your hand or say no. Okay? How many of you think it is positive reinforcement? How many people would say a paycheck is positive reinforcement? Go ahead and count the hands. Go ahead and say your answer out loud. And then, how many people believe a paycheck might be positive reinforcement? Maybe, maybe not. It kind of depends on the employee. It sort of varies from one person to the next. So if you think the answer is maybe, just say maybe, right? Okay. Now, it'd be good if you are in a group of people watching this video, if you can count the hands and get the numbers. And on average, if you have 10 leaders in a room, and I ask this question about whether a paycheck is positive reinforcement or not, we're going to have 2 leaders that say, yeah, a paycheck is positive reinforcement. We're going to have 3 that say, nah, it's not. I've read studies that say it's not. And we're going to have a good 5 that say, maybe it kind of depends. It varies from one person to the next. So it's at this point that we're going to have our first aha moment with the leadership team. And this is a little bit painful, so please don't get mad at me. I look at the leadership team and I say, folks, with all due respect, this leadership team has a serious problem. Y'all disagree on the answer to my question. I mean, 2 of you think a paycheck is positive reinforcement. 3 of you say it's not. 5 of you apparently don't know. And if you can't agree whether something as simple as a paycheck is positive reinforcement, you will never become Company B. You'll never become strategic in your use of positive reinforcement because you do not have a consistent definition of what it is. How can you deliver something you can't even define? Ouch. Hope we're still friends, right? Now, I then say to your leadership team, before I leave here, I'd like y'all to take at least the first step in that journey from Company A to Company B. I want to give you a consistent definition of what positive reinforcement really is, right? So to give you that, I'm going to answer my own question, perhaps a little differently than how many of you answered it. Is a paycheck positive reinforcement for your employee? Absolutely yes. A paycheck is positive reinforcement for one and only one behavior, getting you to show up at work every day. Now, I have an experiment we can do to prove this where we take away your paycheck and I stand by your desk and count how many days you keep coming to work, right? Okay, so do paychecks cause people, generally speaking, to show up at work? Yes, and thus they meet the requirement from behavioral science to be called positive reinforcement, which is simply any consequence that causes behavior to repeat or increase in frequency. Doesn't mean they have to show up every day. It just means they have to continue showing up on a fairly regular basis. So if you take that paycheck away, will people quit showing up at work? Yep, they got to. They got to go find another paycheck somewhere else, right? So a paycheck is positive reinforcement for the one and only one behavior of showing up at work. But does that paycheck guarantee you will do the right thing for safety, quality, customer service in the moment of choice when nobody's watching you? And the answer to that is no. For that higher level of voluntary effort in the moment of choice, it takes more than a paycheck. That's why it takes positive reinforcement coaching and leadership, PR plus leadership, from every supervisor to the top of your organization. But have you ever heard a supervisor or manager make this classic 1980 statement? He ought to do that. That's what he's getting paid to do. I have. And that's wrong. He gets paid to punch the clock. He did that this morning at 7 a.m. That conversation's over. What you get from him beyond that depends upon your ability to be a positive reinforcement coach and leader. Oh, okay, Bill. Now I understand why it takes more than a paycheck to get world-class performance from people. But how do I do it? Nobody ever did it for me. Why should I do it for them? Well, we covered that in our half-day workshop. And WIFM, W-I-I-F-M, that all-important acronym, what's in it for me, right? If you can't answer that question for people, if you can't hold your leadership team accountable and measure positive reinforcement, you will not change their behavior. Now, when we talk a little bit more about this WIFM concept, my mom understood WIFM really, really well. She said, son, if you eat your green beans, you can have some ice cream. And it worked. I'm eating green beans to this day. What did mom do? She pinpointed and communicated the behavior she wanted, made sure I understood, right? Easier said than done. In today's workforce, we have many people who don't speak English. We say, do you understand the correct procedure for doing this safely? Do they really? No, they don't. And so she pinpointed and communicated the behavior. And then what mom did was, when my behavior change occurred, I got a smile, a hug, and a big bowl of ice cream. And hello, I got all those reinforcers immediately, not a million safe kid hours later. I didn't have to wait for the annual kid performance evaluation at the end of the year to see if I was going to get 1, 2, or 3 licks of ice cream. By the way, do you know the research has finally proven everybody hates performance evaluations? No big surprise there, right? Because they're useless when it comes to changing human behavior and improving performance. They don't happen frequently enough. Once a year is not often enough, right? And the implications from the research are huge in this area. We know from behavioral science that the reinforcer has to come within 10 seconds of the behavior. Now, If you think about it, if you hand a worker a t-shirt or a steak dinner or a gift card, and you give him his award and he looks back at you and says, "Hey, thanks for the t-shirt, man. What's this for?" "Well, that's your safety award, Joe." "Oh, okay, thanks." And then off he goes. If he has to ask you why he's getting it, you just wasted your money, because your reinforcer, the t-shirt, did not come within 10 seconds of his behavior, right? So that's one of the problems with those lagging indicator systems. Now, there's another big problem with lagging indicator systems where everybody gets rewarded the same based on hitting some kind of safety, quality, production milestone. Those are one-size-fits-all systems. And they actually, not only do they promote injury hiding quite often if you use them for safety, but they destroy commitment. Now, how could that be? Well, let's take, for just a minute, let's pretend that you and me work together on the same team. And you are the most committed, hardworking employee we have. You do everything for safety, quality, customer service in the moment of choice. Me, on the other hand, I'm non-compliant. I break rules. I take shortcuts. I am the worst employee on the team. And we both know this about each other, right? And then somebody up top has this brilliant idea. Hey, let's give them a $50 gift card and a steak dinner because they didn't report injuries last month or because they hit this quality goal. Well, hold on for a minute. As we're going through, and that, by the way, is a one-size-fits-all award. You get the same thing I get. Now, as we're going through the steak dinner line together, I'm behind you smiling at you. Hey, my steak's just as big as yours. How does that make you feel? Not too good. We punished your commitment and you drop over to being compliant along with 90% of your fellow American workers, right? And then me, my bad behavior, I got the same thing you got. How does it make me feel? I feel real good. You just positively reinforced your worst people. So one-size-fits-all systems are not fair to the best workers in your company. They're not fair. Now, does this science actually work in the real world? Well, yes, it does. We're going to talk a little bit about a construction client in California. Now, they had 1,500 construction workers. They build power plants. They put pipes under the ground, infrastructure, a lot of risk, one of the most deadly industries in America. And prior to working with us, they had a BBS process, behavior-based safety system, that had some pencil whipping, some questionable data, difficult to get people to participate. And then they also had a lagging indicator incentive program, and they were concerned they might have that old bloody finger going in the pocket problem, hiding injuries. They were worried that OSHA might come pay them a visit and that they would get cited or fined for having one. They really wanted to move to a leading indicator positive reinforcement system. So in 2010, we implemented our smart card system. We chose to wrap around their existing BBS process and support it rather than replace it, and just to add more positive reinforcement to it. Well, how did it influence their performance? Well, for the first time, you can see on the slide in 2010, now they can measure the bottom of that risk pyramid. It's not invisible anymore. We don't have people hiding stuff. So when you can really measure the bottom of your risk pyramid, you can begin to get accurate data and drop your numbers. And you can see nice improvement in 2010 in every category: recordable injuries, lost time cases. But what's most significant is what happened to their workers' compensation costs. Folks, they went from an average $2 million spent per year on workers' comp to just $436,000 the very first year they implemented the smart card system. And yes, they did work more work hours that year than any year previous. This was a huge advantage for them when they went to bid jobs in the future. People want them to be on their project because they know their people are so safe. How about lone workers, Bill? How do you handle that? We got people driving around in vehicles all day. We're not really where we can see them that much. Well, that was the situation at Orkin. I had people driving around in their vehicles, crashing into things. They get dog bit, snake bit, spider bit, fall through the ceilings, all kinds, slips and falls, all kinds of injuries. So we implemented our smart card system there, and we documented a 41% drop in their vehicle crashes, a huge savings. In fact, they indicated they saved over $1 million from the ideas our process generated for them in improving their system. Salem Leasing, it's a trucking company. They had 42 lost time injuries per year, and we helped them reduce it to 0. That's about a $2 million savings according to OSHA estimates. A huge impact on their profitability. And they improve retention as well. That's a key focal point when you're dealing with, especially with drivers. Well, thanks for spending some time with me today to understand the science that is the foundation of our Smart Card positive reinforcement system. In our next conversation, what we're going to want to do is talk about that third component. What is the Smart Card system, and how does it help you to measure behavior and measure positive reinforcement so you can actually manage it, right? That's the key, because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And you'll learn in our next session, the part 2 session, the Smart Card demo session, which we'll need you to contact me and just arrange, how we do all that, how in the real world we put the science to work, and how we change behavior to get the amazing results you've just seen for the companies we've talked about. Well, I look forward to having that discussion with you and hope you'll reach out to me. Either give me a call at 803-600-8325 in the United States, or email me at bill.sims@billsims.net. I look forward to speaking with you and your leadership team soon for the Smart Card demo. Thank you very much.